Hello, and welcome to the Untangled Knitting Podcast. Hello, I'm Lily, and this is the Untangled Knitting Podcast. This is where I use a digital space to talk about knitting and yarn and share my enthusiasm and excitement for all things knitting. Today is a very special episode, so shout out to all the 90s kids who might get that reference. And I'll be talking exclusively about my time at the Rose City Yarn Crawl in February. If you're new here, that means this is a little bit different than my usual fare of talking about finished objects and works in progress and plans for dream knitting. But I think it's going to be a really good time. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. Thank you so much for hanging in, and my apologies that this missive is a little bit late. I had a really busy last few weeks at work. In addition to all my yarniness and my momminess, I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. My day job and my professional life is in the fine arts. So I'm an art curator and collections manager. I used to work for the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, and now I work for private collectors and artist estates and do large projects around other types of art collections. So that is my background, and it is where I'm spending a lot of time these days. And I guess we should just get into it. I went up to Portland, Oregon at the end of February for an annual event called the Rose City Yarn Crawl. It was so much fun. I went with my mom and we had a really great girls' weekend, and we saw so many beautiful stores, touched and squeezed gorgeous yarn, and I'm here to tell you all about it. I'm gonna go through our 2 incredibly packed days and talk about the 4 different stores we went to on each of our 2 days. And I'll describe the purchases that I made at each store, or the general aesthetic of the stores, and how we did there. I will say, just if you haven't been to a yarn crawl before, I had also not been to a yarn crawl before. So it is a opportunity for a group of yarn stores or local yarn stores to come together and support each other, and also to support other makers by doing pop-up or trunk shows within each shop. So one of the things that we were trying to decide is not only when to go to different stores based on our own schedules or their locations, but also based on what special guest stars, another 90s TV throwback, would be appearing at each shop on each day. So we were able to see some really spectacular yarn in person and meet some of the makers behind yarns and also yarn accessories. There were really amazing people from all over who came to Portland, Oregon to go through this process together. And then there were also just amazing makers from Portland and the local Oregon knitting community who all seemed to just really galvanize. And I could tell that the Portland knitting community was very close, forgive the pun, but close-knit. But they were also super welcoming, and I just wanted to say thank you to everyone we met. First off, it was such a special time. They were so incredibly generous with offering advice, with offering compliments. I got so many pets. It was just really fun, and I highly recommend it. Just overall, it was a great experience. I will also say that I went into it thinking about what I wanted to purchase, because a lot of the drive for the event is about making purchases. And I tried really hard to be somewhat intentional and to be open to seeing new things and making new plans, but also to try as much as I could to connect the yarn that I was seeing to a project I knew I wanted to make and that I had concrete intentions behind. So I would say about 75 or probably close to 80% of my purchases were all project driven, and they were objects that I planned to make in the next year to 18 months that I know for a fact I could complete. And then there were a few purchases I made that were much more about finding inspiration within the yarn itself and really feeling like I wanted to make something based on what the yarn that I was encountering was calling for. And so I think it was a nice balance, and I felt like that was a good way for me to approach the experience, and I feel comfortable with the way that I spent my time and my resources during the trip. So I think all in all that was a very positive outcome for me as well. So I guess we should get started. As I think I've mentioned before, I'm based in the Bay Area, so it was a really quick trip for me up to Portland, little southwest jump, and I got in on Thursday evening so that I was ready to go and start off on Friday morning at Ritual Dyes. I love this shop. In addition to their own yarns, they also support some really amazing dyers from all over the world. I was particularly keen though to be in the store right after the launch of their new sport base, which is called Sprite. I had read about this and seen them post about it on Instagram. It is 60% merino, 40% Corridale wool, non-superwash. It is incredibly bouncy and sprightly. I think it's a really apt name for the yarn. This is their Forget-Me-Not colorway. I'm gonna come in close so you can kind of see it. It's a very pale blue with quite a bit of green in it. And this will be, my intention for this is that it will be the main color for a Birkin color work sweater, which is a Caitlin Hunter design with a beautiful, I think it is stranded, but I think you only work 2 strands at once. I don't think there are any 3-stranded moments. It's a color work floral motif. And I have some really wonderful yarns that will be left over from a larger project that I know I want to use as those floral moments, and I think this will be a really special base. I love working in sport weight. I think it's a really good fit for my climate here in the Bay Area and also for my tension as a knitter. I find that when I knit in a sport weight yarn, I come up with a fabric that is a really good fit for me. So that's been fantastic. Ritual Dyes, I love ya. Also, while I was there, I picked up a sweater's quantity of the Biches Bûches cashmere and lambswool. This is their very light pink colorway. And it is a very light ballet pink, but it has these pops of fuchsia. So groovy, really, really fun. I love this color. I'm really inspired by the weight of it. It's super, super lightweight. It has a very loose twist, and I have, I think, a very cool project in mind for this. So I'm excited to share more about what I'll be making with this. I think it'll be a really useful garment, both for where I live and my lifestyle, and also I think it's going to be really pretty. So it was a great start to have these two, larger purchases, but with intention. I knew exactly what I wanted and what I needed. I didn't know what colors I was going to get, and I have to say I was a little surprised by my choice of that pink, and I didn't know if it was going to be the Biches Bûches. I was just really open to finding a yarn for that project, and I felt really lucky that I found it on the first day in the first store. So that was really exciting. The next spot we went was in the Pearl District, which is, I think, closer to downtown. And it was a yarn shop called Pearl, or The Pearl. And they had a pop up there with a more local dyer who mostly was having their sock yarns on offer. And I'm just not a sock knitter, so it wasn't really a great fit for me, but they did have the largest shipment of the newest edition of Pom Pom. And I think if you're a very online knitter at all, you probably have seen this posted about. I think people are starting to make some really, really beautiful garments and accessories from this issue. I am really inspired by it. I think that it is such a call and such an offering to spring. And there are 3 different patterns that I have some cool ideas about. I'm really excited to explore the options here. So if this isn't on your radar, definitely worth looking at and looking for. I also heard that some libraries are carrying knitting periodicals these days, so that might be worth checking out as well if that's of interest to you. So definitely worth a look. Oh, so gorgeous. So many great gems in here. We'll get into it on other episodes, I'm sure. Also in the Pearl District, we went to one of my mom's favorite shops. She is also a paper marbler, and she has a love of all things paper. And there's a really special store in the Pearl District called Oblation, I believe. Is that right? Yes, Oblation. And they have an in-house letterpress that is just amazing. And I'd actually never seen someone operate a letterpress before, so I took some video, I'll put it in, that was just really special. And there were fountain pens and as many different kinds of paper as you could imagine. Some had beautiful designs, some was made of all sorts of different fibers that went into the creation of the paper. And then they also had a small section with these little votive saints. And this one is really beautiful. Of course, it called out to me because it's Our Lady Undoer of Knots. Isn't that marvelous? And there's a short description and a prayer on the back. I hope you won't mind if I read it for you. It says, Mary is shown as the Queen of Heaven. A crown of 12 stars surrounds her head with the Holy Spirit as a dove above her, standing on a knotted serpent and a new moon. Angels pass the knotted sins of humanity to her. You can see she's working on them. And then here's the prayer. Holy Mother, undoer of knots, may the unknotted cords of your wisdom free me from the knotted confusions of my mind, so I am rendered harmless and move in the world with clarity of mind and kindness of heart. Isn't that so special? I just thought it was the perfect venerative moment for a knitter. Really special. I'm not a Catholic, but I do have a religious practice of my own, and I just thought that this was such a lovely symbol. So I just thought I'd share with knitters this new to me Our Lady Undoer of Knots. And she's gonna live, I think, nicely right here with my knitting corner. This is actually the chair that I knit in most of the time because it has great light and it's where I keep all my gear. So this is a good spot for it. All right, after the Pearl District, we went to Close Knit, which was a super cute store. Oh my goodness, adorable, in a really great neighborhood. And it was really fun. Mostly the shop itself, and I'll show you what I got, very, very fun, but also waiting in line. So this was our first line experience. And I will say that the yarn crawl had COVID safe protocols in place. So they had everyone on their first day, or when they came to their first shop, were invited and required to provide proof of vaccination. Once they did that, we all received wristbands, and then we all wore masks the whole time that we were shopping in the stores. And it was so wonderful. I have to say, it made everyone feel really comfortable and confident. And for me, it was just a really, really great experience. So yes, we're in line. And we just started chatting with the most kind and interesting people. And we were talking about our projects and our plans and where everyone was from. And it was genuinely a part of the yarn crawl experience. And it was really fun because most folks were also knitting in line. And it makes you realize that as a knitter, there's no such time as a wasted moment, right? We're very, very productive folks. So as we were in line, I was plotting and planning because there are set times for each of these pop-ups, and I was quite anxious to make sure I was there during the pop-up for the farmer's daughter. And I was very lucky that I was, and was able to secure some really, really stunning yarn. This is a speckled colorway called Glacial Lake Missoula, and I purchased it in Foxy Lady, which is 70% merino and 30% silk. It has a little bit of a hazy halo, so shiny, super luminous. And then this is their mohair. It's a 70% mohair, 30% silk. And they're just stunning. So I have used hand dyed and speckled mohair before, but I have not used a speckled wool. And I am really curious to see how these knit up together. I have plans for these from that pom-pom issue. And I'm really excited to see how this goes. So this will be kind of a new adventure for me in this type of hand-dyed yarn, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's a bit of an obvious colorway for me, if you've seen my other podcasts and you know how much I love turquoise, but I think there's a lot of movement in these and a lot of variation, and I think it'll be a really wonderful springtime and summer knit. So very excited about that, and I felt really welcomed in Close Knit. They were really attentive. They helped my mom pick out yarn for a really specific project. They had a lot of samples knit up. It was a really positive, really fun experience. So highly recommend that. And from there, we went on to our last stop of the day. We were fading a little bit, but I was very energized by my farmer's daughter purchases. And we knew we wanted to get to Starlight Knitting Society by the end of the day because it was going to get us back to the southeast area of Portland, which is where my brother lives. And it was also the day that Starlight Knitting Society was hosting a trunk show from La Bien-Aimée. And I had been plotting, or have been plotting, a couple of patterns from Aimee Gilles's book, Worsted, which if you're a very online knitter, you've probably also seen many folks talk about, and she's currently doing a book tour for, so there's a lot of publicity around it. There's one pattern in particular by Tif Neiland? Let me just make sure I said that right. Tif Neiland, excuse me, called the Strata, which is a striped pattern with some really beautiful eyelet details, and I've been having this on my list since the book came out. I also knew that I wanted to make it in the Corridale worsted from La Bien-Aimée because of the color palette really, really spoke to me, and also because of the quite new to me blend of Corridale and Gotland. So, of course, I had to get the turquoise. This is Higlia, and this is my ultimate gray. This is French gray. It is a super bright white. Like the white that's in this gray is really, really bright. It is not muddied at all. And a lot of the darker tones come from an undyed dark wool that you can see those undyed fibers really come out. And it's not obviously it's not a tweed, but it has that appeal to it and that variation. Again, it's 75% Falkland Corridale and 25% Gotland. And the Gotland, from what I understand, and I'm still learning about all of this, remember, not an expert, just an enthusiast, but from what I understand, the Gotland gives a really deep, vibrant sheen. And so that sheen, I think that refraction really comes out in this gray. You can see it also on the Higlia, excuse me. And then super poppy on the Fluoro Morganite. Get right up in there. And again, do you see those darker fibers? So interesting. And then the Winterfell is this super dark navy, which I love. And then I also got it in this more muted pink called Dawn. And this is the really beautiful cranberry color, which I do wish I'd gotten a second of, actually. It's called Eric Northman, and I really dig that. I mean, very, very special. So I will be doing stripes and or Stratified and one other pattern. There's another color work pattern in the worsted book that I'm quite keen on, which will have this gray as the main color. So this was definitely my most substantial purchase, and it was planned. I knew that I wanted to see all of these colors in person, and I knew that I wanted to really just purchase the book, purchase the colors, look at the pattern photos in the book, and pick my colors and have that be its own experience. And I did, and it was everything I wanted. As a curator, making these kinds of selections and doing the research that I need to feel confident in making my selections is a really big part of what I love about knitting. So this was a special one, and I'm really happy with the purchases that I made, and it was a really fun way to end our first day. I can't believe that was just day one. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna need a sip of tea before I talk about day two. Okay, day two. We started out at Weird Sisters, which is in the northwest or kind of north central area of Portland, and I had not been there before. We unfortunately missed, but had gone with the intention of seeing these fabulous Heidi West Designs project bags. So I have to say, this was my mom's call. She said, these project bags look amazing. I really want one. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, they were sold out, but we were able to, or I was able to order the ones that I wanted directly from Heidi. And I should have said earlier that, I'm very sorry, but everything that I talk about will be in the show notes, that big description box. I love a footnote. It will all be there. You don't have to worry about writing anything down. So I was able to order from Heidi directly. I love her prints. She's the most incredible textile designer. The current collection is based on flowers of the month. And so this is May, Lily of the Valley. And yes, I am a May birthday. And it's perfect. Great for, this is an entire sweater's quantity of yarn. It's a very simple bucket bag. I've been carrying this up and down the stairs of my house as I'm working on a test knit, which I can talk about. So I'll talk about that in the next episode. I think it's going really well. I'm really excited about it. But it's just the perfect size for me. I actually did throw it in my big tote too and took it in the car. So really handy, really beautiful. Love that bag. And I also purchased from her a very substantial project bag. And this is, it's kind of the platonic ideal for me when it comes to a large knitting project bag. It's something I've been looking for a while. I was looking at Hyde & Hammer's large bags. I was looking at a couple others that are, again, kind of common, very online project bags, but nothing fit the bill like this does. So it closes very handily, has a full zipper so nothing can fall out. But when it opens, it stays open. This is this, I don't know if it's steel or another kind of metal reinforced opening. So everything really stays open and contained. It's not gonna grab, it's not gonna fall in on itself. I can see everything. And talk about everything. Look at all those pockets. So many pockets. And small pockets for pens and notions. I have some buttons in here. This is all the yarn, by the way, that I will be using in that Birkin that I mentioned. So if you want to get a little preview, won't that be amazing? I mean, I'm very excited. I think it's going to be awesome. It's very cool. Here, maybe it's hard to see. I will get closer. So that's going to be very, very special. And yeah, I really love it. I'm really excited to get a lot of use out of this. And I will also say that because I was communicating directly with Heidi about them, I was able to get a custom gray waxed canvas on this, which was really nice. It's just super beautiful, really sturdy, and I love it. It's definitely one of my favorite purchases that I'm calling of the trip, even though I did it kind of online. We were able to see, I think they had one more left in the store, and I was really introduced to her through the event at work, Weird Sisters, so that was very cool. After Weird Sisters, we drove all the way out to Forest Green, which is where Knotty Lamb is located. And Knotty Lamb has a pretty vibrant and active online presence as well. I've actually ordered some things from them directly, but this was my first time being in their shop. It was so nice. They had so many samples. So it was a really fun opportunity to see a lot of sweaters that I have seen pictures of on Instagram or have seen patterns of, and seeing them in person was so great. And I will say that I think they had a really beautiful display of them. They also had a really great series of smaller dyers that, again, I had heard of, but I had never seen in person. And this is where I actually bought something I had not planned to buy. And it is from Life in the Long Grass. This is their single ply, and it's another speckled yarn. So it'll be a new to me knitting experience. It is the most beautiful color. It's called Storyteller, and it is a super luminous steel blue gray with the most amazing flecks of cobalt blue, In fact, I'll try to get super close so you can see that gorgeous cobalt and then shocks of yellow and even some of that kind of cranberry marled in or marbled in. Isn't that so nice? So it was just it was a special yarn. I was just walking by. I didn't have any, I still don't know what I will make with it. I did get a sweater's quantity and I'm really excited about it. I think that I'll have to find something really special to do with it, and I was comfortable with the price point and doing it outside of my planned for items, and I'm really glad I did, because this is again the kind of yarn that I wouldn't feel comfortable buying online necessarily, because it's so, I think first of all, this would be very hard to photograph, and I don't even know if the camera here is doing it justice, but it really spoke to me in the moment, and so I'm really glad I was able to bring it home. It's very special. And from there, far out in Forest Knolls, we drove back towards the city and stopped in Beaverton, where we went to our 3rd yarn store of the day, 7th yarn store of the past, I guess, 24 or 48 hours. And that was for yarn's sake. And it's a very unassuming kind of entryway. It's in a large shopping area. And then we walked in and it was a very large store with really beautiful yarns, beautifully installed, and basically every color from different yarn providers. So they had a Woolfolk section, for example, that had every colorway from Woolfolk in every base and in every iteration, and samples knit up from in each of them. It was really, really impressive. And while some of the yarn was yarn that I had seen before, some of it wasn't yarn I had seen in person at all. They had the entire Marie Wallin selection, and I think they might be one of the few places you can buy that in person in the United States. So that was really great to see all of her colors. And I did have to get Gentle, which is one of her publications. This is definitely my Carnegie haul. You know, I think that this is, how do you get there? You practice. And I definitely feel that way about her designs. I think one day I really hope to make, actually this one, I think it's called the Honeysuckle Sweater. And that is something I hope is in my future one day, though I'm not quite there yet. Let's be honest. I'm not there yet, but I think I could do it. So I'll keep practicing. The other thing they had on one of these giant walls was, I believe, every colorway that was not custom of Spin Cycle. And if you know anything about me and the projects that I've been working on recently, there's been a lot of Spin Cycle. So I was really keen to see so many different versions within each colorway. So they were installed very, traditionally. So you had a single rod and then each skein looped over that rod, but you could tell that there was such a huge variation from skein to skein within each colorway. And when you're looking at it en masse like that, I thought it was really fascinating, and it gave me a lot of insight into both the product and the process that these color changing yarns go through. And when they say there's a lot of variation between the skeins, there's a lot of variation between the skeins. So this is actually Ghost Ranch, but it doesn't look anything like the other Ghost Ranch colors that I've acquired in other places. So it's of course I had to get it because it was full turquoise. But it it's really spectacular, and it was really great to see it all together. Kind of gave me more insight into it. I also did acquire this darker toned version of Cold Comfort, which is a very pale colorway. And I think that I'll be using this in my Great Gingham sweater instead of the Castle, which is a much punchier version of a lot of these colors. So I was really excited to see this, because as I had knit up the hat, which I still love and I'm glad I did in those really vibrant colors, I'm interested to see how this works as more of an overall fade and as a better contrast, I think, for the darker blue that I'll be using in that project. So if none of this makes sense to you, please go back and watch episode 1 or episode 2 of the podcast, and you'll get a little bit more background on some of the projects I'm working on and how some of this yarn fits into that. So, for yarn's sake, done. Checked the box. Got the stamp. Did I not mention this? I don't think I mentioned this. We had passports. We had these sweet little passports where you got a stamp from each store when you went there. So for a task achiever, box checker person, this was a dream come true. I had a really good time checking off each one and going to each shop. The last shop on the last day was Northwest Wools. And at this point, it was really raining on Saturday afternoon, and we were kind of fading, and it was also a little bit cold. And we pulled up, there's this huge line. Are we really gonna do this? Are we really gonna stand in cold rain in order to go into another yarn store? The answer is yes. Yes, we did. We stood in line, and it was actually really quite sweet. They had coffee. The yarn store owners came out with chocolates just to keep everyone's spirits up. And I'm so glad that we persevered and made it inside on the Saturday, because the pop-up and trunk show at Northwest Wools on that Saturday was Shaggy Bear Farms. And this was one of the trunk shows that I was most keen on seeing and speaking with the owners of, and just getting more understanding, because I had read about their work, and it is both a animal rescue and sanctuary and a fiber farm. And so they have pygmy alpaca there, they have pygmy Angora goats, they have different breeds of sheep, and they really are so sincere about how they are rehabilitating these animals and their service to the animals, and then these gifts of fiber that the animals are providing. And it was just a really beautiful story. It seems like a very magical place, and I was really keen to see their work, and it is absolutely stunning. So this is a pygmy alpaca and linen blend, and I would say its closest relative is probably linen quill, but it's, as you can see, it's very, very different. It has a much more nuanced tweediness from the linen. The linen is, I think, much more integrated into the animal fibers, and it is so soft. It is incredibly soft, incredibly squishy, and very, very lightweight. So I think this is, it has it in ounces, not grams, which is not super helpful for me because I don't know that conversion offhand. But this is 450 yards and it's less than 3.5 ounces, I think. So it's incredibly lightweight and look at that. I mean, so drapey. I'm very excited about using that. And then this is the Alpaca Bunny and Tussa Silk yarn, which is a just stunning, look at that, stunning lilac. And the softness of the color and the softness of the yarn go together so perfectly. I felt really lucky actually to snag this so late in the day. And look at that incredible halo. Oh, so beautiful. This is probably the softest yarn I've felt ever. It's really unique. And that I'm sure is coming from the Angora or those bunny fibers. It is really, really magical. So it was definitely worth standing in the cold rain. And I'm so glad that we did. And it was a great way to end too with something this unique and this special and absolutely worth the trip, and to make those connections with people in person. At that last store, I also ran into, and had arranged to meet Emily from Wallin Palette. It was really special to meet her in person and to connect and to hear about her last few days. Her trunk show was before we got into town on Thursday at Close Knit, I believe, and it sounded really exciting, and she made some really beautiful connections herself. And yeah, it was just a really fun weekend, and I definitely want to go back. I would love to go and potentially do a meetup with our little community, which is growing so much. And I just had a ball, and I thank you for giving me the space and the time and the place to share about it and to enthuse as always. I honestly have no idea how long I've been talking at this point, but I do think I need another sip of tea before I close things out. And it was just a great weekend. I love Portland. We ate so well. We had so much fun playing with my little niece. And I will say though, at the end of day 2, my mom and I were babysitting, and we just sat on the couch, just so exhausted. We were just completely wiped out, and I would definitely take more than 2 days next time. And for the completionist that I am, and the needing to check off the boxes that I needed to do, I'm not sure I would go to every single store. I think I might even go back to some stores on different days depending on what pop-ups and trunk shows were happening. So that I might do a little bit differently next time. But all in all, it was a super successful event. I feel really good about the purchases that I made. I think that they were in the spirit that I wanted them to be. There were definitely moments where I held back, where I got like very caught up in the juicy beauty and held myself back a bit, and I'm glad I did that as well. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say about this time. I don't think so. Please, if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. If you have any feedback about any of the yarns, or if you have any ideas for what I might want to make with my new beautiful speckles. I don't know. I don't even know if I want to knit it. I mean, I do want to knit it, but for a while I just want to look at it because it's so different too. It's really fun feeling like I'm outside of my usual fare, and it was great to be in an environment where that felt encouraged and supported and excited. So thank you all for sticking with me if you're still here, and I will put in some additional footage and some pictures of our time, and I will see you fairly soon because I have a lot on my needles and a lot actually coming off my needles. The returning viewers will notice this is my DRK Everyday, which I'll talk about at length because it literally is my everyday sweater now. I've worn it so much, and I was debating whether or not to do this, but I think I will. I happened to notice that we now have over 1,000 subscribers, so I will be putting together a giveaway, and let's see if I can unfold this a little bit. Here we go. I did pick up something for everyone at the Yarn Crawl, which is a mini, which I think would be perfect for a hat or sock or other accessories project, or just to hold some yarn. This is a mini bucket from Heidi West, and there's her little tag. And it's really cute and special. And this is the daffodil. Isn't it so beautiful? So we'll talk about that next time. I'll have some spring bouquet-ish yarns in here, and we'll do a giveaway for the next official episode. Just a little sneak peek for the folks who have lasted this long. So thank you. I gotta stop rambling now. And I will see you next time. Thank you all, and happy knitting. Bye. City Yarn Crawl. So far so good. It's been really fun to just meet new people and check in about projects. A few people did notice the purpurea, which has been rocking and keeping me so warm and snuggly, and it's just been such a delight squishing yarn and smiling with our eyes, you know. Just the masks just don't even matter at this point. And off to my last stop today at Starlight Knitting Society. Maybe I'll grab a pint because they have some very cute pint glasses there. So super fun one, and can't wait for more.